Hey everyone, this is Friedel Courage Raven, and I'm back with my recap and review of Snowpiercer season number 1, episode number 2, which is titled Prepare to Brace. And disclaimer, TNT provided me with a free review screener of this episode. This is not a sponsored video, and the opinions that I share are my own. The episode opens up with a narration by Josie. Now, in the previous episode, the Tailies, they had this rebellion and uprising, and that failed. So, of course, the Tailies now know that they will have to serve some sort of punishment. They will have to take the punishment, and Root is here to give that punishment. Now, according to Wilfred's orders, no Tailie will be killed. However, they will need to take an arm of a person, and that person is this little girl who was running around in the previous episode with a severed hand. And Root is like, who's going to take responsibility? Do you want me to take the arm of this child, or is someone going to stand up? So the child's mom stands up, and the child's mom is like, take my arm instead, spare the child. And Root is like, where's the logic in that? And the mom is like, I'm the mom. I allowed the child to help the rebellion, so it's my fault that she did it. And Root is like, you know what? Okay, I'll take your arm. And she also tells the other Tailies that this is the kind of resolve, this is the kind of character that she wanted to see, that someone was willing to stand up for the little girl. And you know what? I was actually surprised. I really thought that someone from the Tailies' side would stand up and sacrifice their own arm for the child. And seeing that not happen, yeah, that really raised a whole lot of questions for me, because apparently the Tailies were all about being together and supporting each other. Like, someone else should have stood up and sacrificed their own arm to save the child. But yeah, that happened. So the child goes to her brother while their mom prepares for her arm to be taken away. And while that's happening, in the previous episode, we knew that Layton ended up striking a bargain. So Pike and two other people from the Tailies are supposed to go into the cupboard, or yeah, it's the cupboards, right? I'm not really sure what they call that thing where they just go to sleep. So Pike is like, I'm going under Layton, so keep your promise. So we see the woman's arm being frozen, and it's similar to how the punishment was served in the movie, the Snowpiercer movie. So yeah, she had to give away her arm, and of course it's painful, and now the other Tailies will have to do what they can to help her heal. And then the scene ends with Josie telling the audience that this is the story of their uprising, and this is the story of how the Tailies won't rest until they go ahead and eat the rich. Now, also from the previous episode, we know that the terrain or the location or the territory that this train is moving through is very uneven, and there are some dangers. So, of course, this is the first danger. There's this sort of avalanche, and it hits the train, and of course Melanie is worried, but Melanie knows that the train will survive, and it does. So she goes to the head of the train in order to see what's happening, and we are introduced to this new character who basically keeps an eye on all of the dangers that the Snowpiercer might face from the area that they're in. And he has been able to hack into Russian satellites to chart their map, to chart their route. And he tells Melanie that they're going to keep on facing danger, and it's better that they slow the train down. And Melanie is like, you know what, we ain't slowing nothing down, and we will continue on the same speed, and I'm also not going to black out certain areas of the train so that more power can be given to keeping the train running and keeping it warm. Then we have the scene where a few people from the Tailie section are being asked to come up to work for sanitation. Now, while that's happening, we see that Bess is ready to take Layton around the train, because Bess is now working with Layton in order to investigate the murder that happened. And so Layton and the people from the train, they meet each other, and this is where Layton realizes that he has people up on the train with him, and he has to send them some sort of message. While that's happening, Melanie and Root are in the dining cart, and they are trying to see whether or not the rich people are all comfortable. And then This is where the rich people end up bringing up the conversation about there being a rebellion going on and that Melanie needs to keep things in check. Mrs. Fogler brings up the topic about using a tailie to investigate a murder, and she isn't happy about it, and she wants Melanie to be more upfront about what's happening because the rich people deserve to know. And Melanie is like, you all need to calm down. Mr. Wilfred is taking care of everything. We see Leighton going into the chain section of the train, and this is where he sees a child. So he knows that the second class people and the people in the chain are being allowed to have babies through a lottery, and he has been wanting a child for very long, especially because the tailies have been sterilized. Bess tells Leighton to keep focus, and they're here to investigate a murder and he needs to follow her. She ends up taking him to the person who found the body, and this is where we see Leighton using his interrogation skills. And while he's doing that, we also see that Leighton ends up stealing a pen because again he needs to send a message to the people that he knows in the tale. While that's happening, we see that Jinju is trying to wake up the girl who was falsely accused of the murder, of the first murder that happened. And it turns out that the entire thing isn't going well. Apparently the girl, while being put under sleep, her body has started to decompose, and that's not good. We see Bess taking Leighton to the night car, and night car is this club disco type car where everyone comes to relax, and the night car has its own rules, and we are introduced to a new character named Miss Audrey, who runs the night car. Miss Audrey isn't happy about how the young girl was previously falsely accused of murder, and she is trying to make out whether or not Leighton is on their side and if Leighton will be able to solve the actual murder and bring justice to the young girl who was falsely accused. This is where we get to know that the night car has this special room, and she invites Leighton in, and Zara is already there, and we see that this is a special area where people come to grieve. So the night car isn't just a brothel, it's also a way for people to let their emotions go. This is where they come to feel something, anything. And this entire sequence reminded me of that sci-fi indie movie Aniara. I linked my review down in the comment section below because if I remember correctly, Aniara was also about community of people stuck in a spaceship out in space, and they too had this special section where they would come and they would let their emotions come out in order to relax and all of that stuff. Anyway, Zara helps Leighton to relax, and she asks him to meditate, and because of Leighton meditating, we get a flashback way back when Leighton and Zara were happy together and the world hadn't frozen over yet. And we see Leighton proposing to Zara and wanting to spend the rest of his life with him and all of that stuff. So when all of these emotions resurfaced, Leighton and Zara ended up hooking up, and Leighton tells Zara that he won't allow anyone to falsely accuse her because the guy who was murdered was Zara's boyfriend, and of course everyone thinks that it's Zara who ended up killing him. This is also where Zara tells Leighton that Sean, the guy who was murdered, he was likely a snitch, and that's why Mr. Wilfred is very focused on having the murder solved, because again Mr. Wilfred is worried about what Sean might have said to the person who murdered him. We see Leighton, Bess, and another doctor going through Sean's body, and they're trying to figure out what happened to him. So apparently Sean was strangled, his genitalia was cut off, his arms and legs were sawed off as well. And this is where we see Leighton mention cannibalism. It has happened before in the tale. It again relates to what we have already seen in the Snowpiercer movie. So I like how this TV show is building on the world we saw from the film, while also keeping the things that work, and also introducing some new lore and some new developments. Because of Leighton's hunch, Bess takes him to the butchers, and of course the butchers don't want Bess to come in. And while that's happening, we see that Melanie isn't happy about people not waking up fully healthy after they have been put down to sleep in the cupboards. And we see her open the door. So apparently there's a whole lot of cupboards, and Melanie has a plan. Maybe Melanie wants people to go to sleep and wake up after a few hundred years, whatever that's the case. Or maybe she wants to put a few people to sleep so that they can save on resources. So anyway, while she's contemplating about what she needs to do next, we see that there's a huge avalanche making its way towards the train. So there's a warning that everyone should brace themselves. And yeah, a huge avalanche. And while everything is being thrown around inside the train, one of the windows of the compartments where the cows are being held, it breaks. All of the freezing wind comes in. All of the cows end up being frozen. So yep, trouble in Snowpiercer has begun. As I mentioned in the premiere of the episode, this TV series takes place a few years before the events of the films. So in the film, the train was already dealing with a whole lot of that stuff. So in this TV series, we're going to start seeing the Snowpiercer experiencing that bad stuff, and how all of the resources end up being limited, and how the humans aren't really happy while trying to survive in the train. So yeah, all of the cows are dead, so they can't necessarily use that dairy, that meat, and all of that stuff now. Bess and Layton are able to search the butcher's freezer, and this is where Layton ends up finding the cut off limbs. So yeah, that was very creepy, that the butcher might be feeding other people human parts. See this character, and apparently he's an engineer, and he sees Melanie and her boyfriend come in, and he has this scene where he closes his eyes and allows all of the cold wind to hit his face for some reason. Maybe he just wants to feel something. So Melanie is in here, and Melanie asks the engineer how long it will take for repairs to happen, and the engineer is like, it's going to take very long because we are running on low energy, so we need to figure out the energy situation if you want me to make repairs faster. So this is where Melanie finally decides that yep, blackouts do need to happen, and she's going to start with a tale. We see Miles and a few other kids learning about maths and other stuff, because if there are some talented kids in the tale, they have the opportunity to be selected as interns and be moved to third and second class. Then we have this scene of John, how should I word this? John making someone give him work him down there, and we see that the person was the kid whose mom had to sacrifice her arm. And it turns out that John allows Tailies to give him sexual favors for return of a few things like medicine and food and all of that stuff. And I'm like, John, that's not good. I mean, John is a queer character, okay, points for that, but the way that his character is handled, that's just, it's not good. So the kid goes and he hands the chrono, again, a thing we saw in the movie. He hands the chrono to Josie. Even though it's a very addictive drug, it helps with the pain, and he needs his mom to stop feeling pain. We see Melanie talking to Jinju and her boyfriend about what to do with the resource situation, and Jinju tells Melanie that with the cows gone, they can't use their beef, they can't use their methane, they are in trouble, and Melanie is just like, oh. We see Ruth making her way down to the tail, and she's asking for certain kids to work as interns, and Miles' name comes up. That's happening. Layton tells Bess that the butcher wasn't the one who killed Josh, and they need to find the true murderer. Bess is actually very surprised about Layton, because she thought that Layton would just frame the butcher and get the mystery over with and be transferred to third or second class. But Layton is like, no, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to find the real murderer. The day is up, and it's time for Layton to go back behind bars, and Bess ends up patting his body down to see whether or not he ended up stealing something. He did steal something, but he was able to hide it inside of him, if you know what I mean. So after Bess leaves him, Leighton ends up using the pen that he stole and he also tears a piece of his t-shirt, and he ends up drawing this map so that he can get that information to the people he knows from the tale. Leighton is able to unlock himself from behind bars, and he goes outside into the corridor. He draws a sign in order to tell the people he knows from the tale where to look. Ends up hiding the piece of cloth that he drew the information on at one side. So as the tailies are coming back after their sanitation duty, this is where Leighton causes a diversion because he wants the people that he knows to pick up the piece of cloth. And of course, one of the person tries to pick it up, but it doesn't work, and yep, Leighton's plan has failed. And we shift to Josie telling Miles that she's very happy that he has been selected to intern and work in one of the upper carriages, and she tells Miles that he will always be part of the tale, and that he needs to be ready for the signal for the revolution to happen. Leighton ended up getting very beaten up by the police, and Melanie of course isn't happy about it, and Melanie is like, Leighton, why would you do this? I gave you an opportunity. Why would you blow it away? And this is where Leighton ends up using his trump card. Leighton is like, I know why Mr. Wilfred wants me to solve this murder, because that murderer ended up killing a snitch of yours, and Mr. Wilfred is worried about what the snitch might have told the murderer. So you need me. And while you need me, you're going to listen to me. Melanie ends up having the last laugh. Melanie is like, Leighton, I don't know what you think, but I am in control. Mr. Wilfred is in control, which we already know that Melanie is apparently Mr. Wilfred. And she's like, Leighton, you're going to do what I asked you to do, trained detective. And the episode ends here, and I think I'll be doing a written review of this for the Geekery. If I do, the link to the review will be down in the comment section below. In my opinion, it was an enjoyable episode. It allowed certain plot developments to occur. It told us why Sean was murdered and why Mr. Wilfred / Melanie wants the murder to be solved. This was also the episode where we saw the Snowpiercer face very huge damage with all of the cows being killed. So it will be very interesting to see how Melanie tries to keep all of the resource levels running. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode down in the comment section below. And until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys later.